Well, there she is, ladies and gentlemen. The very first S&B cold air intake for the Duramax 2.8 on the Chevy Colorado. Looks awesome. Can't wait to go drive it. So far, so good. So let's keep the prototype going. And well, actually, this is the first production model. Period. It's been like a year in development with these guys. So super excited right now. You guys got to listen to the suck down here in the corner, because it basically has ports that come in like kind of over here by the wheel well. There's 2 intake ports now. So it's, you got the main one that AFE power does, and then these guys are running the second one, which is gonna hopefully be a, you know, really the huge improvement. You got all the good silicone seals, got everything. I can hear it. It's definitely louder. You know, the stock one was so quiet. This sounds like it's, you can just hear the air getting sucked in. So we'll keep an eye out for it right now. Still so far so good, no codes. I am so excited. Alright, so my initial thoughts here, greatly improved throttle response. Like, tremendously. It's so good now. I mean, I just cut into this lane real quick to give it a shot, and I started from a dead stop and was able to get in like literally no problem. So any kind of potential lag that may have been there in the past with the turbo, it just really seems to have helped the turbo lag tremendously. There was always a noticeable amount of that, and you kind of always had to lead the engine a bit before with the throttle. So you kind of had to almost know what you were going to do before you actually did it. And right now, it's kind of like, oh, I just hit it and it goes, you know. So we're going to sneak back in here. But I did get to run a quick little jaunt at about 60 miles an hour. And I would normally see numbers like on a flat line of maybe 32-ish, somewhere in there, around that range. It's not actually a, believe it or not, it seems more efficient up around like the 75 range. Which is kind of weird, because obviously you're going faster, typically takes more power and less efficiency, but there's more torque at 2,000 RPMs as well. So it's kind of hard to see it right now. I think it's actually running a regen cycle, and that's why my averages, and also I've been just in shit traffic this whole time, so that the average isn't very good for the last 21. I've been really flogging it and getting to know it. But just cruising down the freeway, I went from where I typically see 32 up to about 36. 37, 38, so you know, noticeably better already, and I just really can't wait to put some miles on it. You know, it's badass, like it's super badass. So great job to S&B. Initially here, everything looks awesome, sounds cool. It sounds like if you were to open the glove box while hitting the gas, like your face is just gonna get sucked into the engine. So it's definitely got like increased intake noise kind of down here on the passenger side. They are going to sell what it sounds like a block off plug for the double intake, and you can just have the single normal intake, but that's all right, just wait. But yeah, I mean, you open that up and it just sounds like your face is just going to get ripped in right in the motor, so pretty funny. Alright guys, I just wanted to talk real quick about how the stock intake on your 2.8 Colorado's Duramax motor compares to the S&B Filters one. Yeah, it's not in there because I already installed it. So let's look at this real quick, and then we'll go look at the new one. The stock intake only has one port here for really sucking. It's going to be right over the passenger wheel well, off to the kind of front of the wheel well, and you'll notice some of the things here that they just don't compare. This is really cheap. Well, I guess it's rubber, but it's some kind of a, I don't know, it's definitely not doing a great job of sealing it for sure. That's supposed to go right up against the wall of the fender, so that should keep some hot air out, whatnot, but generally probably not doing the best job. Then it's going to go straight into here, and you're going to see that it gets sucked right up into the filter there. Right, and there's a nice little net, and then it's going to pop up, go through the filter, and come right back down this side. Then there's this little, I'm going to assume it's some kind of a vortex generator to get the cyclone going before it hits the turbo. And in here you've got some oil, I've noticed. So this is after about a year of running. There's a little bit of oil there, and here as well, probably from, you know, just generally PCV action. I'm not sure if they're feeding that back in before the turbo. It looks like they are, so interesting, but basically very restrictive overall, and just not good seals to keep the heat out. So you're definitely not going to have very cold air going in, and obviously the name of the game is to keep it pretty cold so it's dense and you get more oxygen, and then when you go ahead and burn it, you get more bang. So let's compare. So the S&B actually has, this is the plug for it. There's a secondary port on that one that's going to be back here with a big scoop that comes back, and it grabs the back of the wheel well. And you know, this is the plug. If you didn't want to run the scoop, you could get away with it. But now looking at the new one here, obviously much sexier. Freaking looks awesome, actually. I mean, when you open it, you're like, oh, nice, you know. Of course, everybody wants to see really something nice and shiny when they open the hood, so why not a cold air intake? And if you look back in the corner there, this is that secondary intake area, and you can see the scoop kind of runs all the way around the back there, and grabs it at the side, as well as down here you've got your main intake port, which is real similar to the stock one. Obviously the seals there much better than before, so trying to keep the, you know, any air that's going into the box as cold as possible, and that way it's dense. And this is going to kind of route down once it comes up through the filter, and it's going to route down past the mass air sensor. This is that PCV line, I think. I'm assuming that's what that is. And then straight feed into the mouth of the turbo down there, and away she goes. You'll notice they've kind of double sealed let's focus that. Double sealed the edges here a little bit, so it's kind of nice. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect seal on the top, but it is pretty good. And it doesn't really have to be. It's just, you know, generally you're not going to see a lot of heat flow, even if there's just a small gap between there. You're not going to see much heat getting under there. Mostly where you're pulling the majority of it from is back in the corner and right here, probably more than anything. I've noticed when I run it and I'm kind of got my foot in it, it takes a good couple seconds for it to really start pulling from the backside. I'm sure immediately it's grabbing from here, but it almost has to build the vacuum in here a little bit, or not necessarily vacuum, just low pressure, before it really starts to suck it out of the back. So rather than hearing kind of a turbo lag, you almost hear, it might be a kind of a mix of the turbo lag, and the engineer and I were talking, we seem to think the sound really comes a bit more from the turbo, but yeah, it could be, you know, it is noticeably a little bit louder back there when you're just driving around on the street. So that's pretty much the only trade-off. I'm going to run the scoop, I think. I'm not going to plug it, but if it does get too annoying, he said he ran it both ways and didn't hear too much of a difference, which is why we're thinking it's more of the turbo noise. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit louder for you and just sound pretty cool. So that's kind of my the setup for the new S&B kit. Overall, very happy with it. I've seen huge gains. I mean, this is really the first maybe 100 miles I've done with it, but as far as efficiency goes and pull, the torque is just off the charts compared to what it was before. The throttle response is truly noticeable, and just generally overall, you're looking at a much more responsive motor, and it pulls good. It pulls a lot better now than it ever did. You know, right off the line, And also I was seeing efficiencies, like generally I would just do this trip back from my fiance's house to here. It's about 55 miles or so. And I would normally see about 29 miles a gallon. Well, I just finished this trip up. The cruise was about 72 most of the way. It was a pretty good, reliable look at how it's going to perform on the freeway for you. And finished the whole trip about 34.5. So, you know, almost 5 miles a gallon better than what I was seeing. And I've seen 29 for the last year. So right out of the gate, I'm seeing, you know, almost another 5 miles per gallon. That's awesome. I got to tell you what, that is truly awesome. And it's really not that much louder or anything. So definitely check these guys out if you're in the market for an intake for your truck. And, you know, it's definitely getting stormy out there. So always good to have good protection. And the last thing on these guys is, you know, they definitely care about your engine and your warranty, so they're going to cover that. They're one of the only companies out there that obviously take it that far, and S&B is just really where it's at. So check them out. Overall, real happy. And let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and we'll keep you posted in the future. Thanks.